Okay, again, we're going to do the lesson 1.6, building, running, and debugging an app. It's rather important that you learn how to find out what errors are coming up and how to deal with them. Probably the best way is to put a break in there and then have it step through the break. So that's what this goes through, so that you can go from line to line through your code and find out where the bug is. That's probably the most important concept of the day. And the book will go over that, but just how to step through the code to find where the problem is basically what we're talking about. And so, again, on page 57, we could just start with opening our Xcode up. And again, they talk about using a plain Xcode project and using just a single view project right there, single view. And then we're going to give it a name. I think they tell you to call it Getting Started, I think. Or they tell you to get somewhere. I think they tell you to call it Getting Started, right? Getting Started, yes. Getting Started. Like that. And then say next. Find a place where you want to put it. I already have a folder on my desktop with my last class project in it. I'm just going to use the same folder and put it in there. I'm not going to use the git. I'm going to hit create and it'll start. On page 58 they talk about this area called the scheme. And so I'm going to choose where devices are down here to iPhone again, and I was going to choose, so again I usually use the iPhone here. Yes? Yeah, use your iPad, anything you want to use. It's not really important, it's just a way to limit certain things, that's all. Interface. And then if you go to the main storyboard file like we usually do, right? If you remember over here, we got the main storyboard. This is where all our programming will go in this one, the ViewController, and then we store assets in here. We're really not going to be storing any assets today. But if you go to the main storyboard, they're asking you on page 58 to find the, locate the scheme menu on the Xcode toolbar, and then choose the device you want to simulate from the list. So they're talking about simulating in the simulator, and which one do you want to choose. And so if you go up here at the very top, see where it says Getting Started, and right next there there's a pull down menu there. This is the one that they're saying, hey, which one do you want to test in the simulator, which one do you want to use? So depending upon which device you might have connected. Now I haven't been able to connect my iPhone. There's something a little wrong with this computer, but I talked to the network people here. They're going to come in here and going to get hopefully these set up so that we can plug our phone in so we can see what we're doing right on our phone. Certain things that you test will only work on your phone, right? Let's say you're doing an app and you in your app's taking advantage of the camera feature, right? There's no camera in the simulator, right? So you're going to have to hook your phone up to test certain things, and so just keep that in mind. So here you can choose which one. So if I have an iPhone 6, I can choose that right there, and so on. Now the default here looks like it's iPhone 8 Plus, and that's sort of what they have there at the thing. Then they tell you on that same page, I'm going to just leave that default because that's what they left in the reading. Then they tell you to hit the little play button so it'll go and simulate it. And then they talk about the simulator a little bit on page 59. They talk about if you get an error message, what does that mean? Of course, that error message that they're talking about on page 59 is telling you that you should have a developer's account. If you don't have a developer's account, they say you can go to the Apple website and sign up for the developer's account. And so they do have that somewhere. Where is that? So I know I saw the web address somewhere. Oh, there it is. It's in the error message. No? Somewhere I did see that. They tell you to go and sign up for the developer account. Did anybody of you sign up for a developer account? It's free. It's somewhere. I know I saw the website in this lesson somewhere. I don't see it. Which page is it? So, oh, and the next page on page 6. Oh, there it is. Developer.apple.com, and then you can set up an account. You don't have to do that right now. I'm just pointing it out that the reason why they're saying that is certain debugging features, like they're saying there, may need to have a developer's account. That's all they're saying. I didn't get the message that they showed on page 59. I think I already set this one up. I don't know if you did. Did anybody get the message that they show on page 59? No? Okay, so then they tell you how to deal with the simulator. They have some command keys there if you look at that. You can scale it up and down, they say. Command 1 to command 5. So command 1, no, it didn't work. Command 5, no scaling. If you're using an older Mac, you may want to select the older, lower resolution device such as iPhone to reduce the impact. No, mine didn't work. Yeah, that's okay. To quit the simulator, of course, again, in the simulator, you can do turning, rotating. We saw that. You can do portrait, and you rotate, shake gesture, lock, home, Siri, iTouch. I wonder if does Siri work? Anybody try that in the simulator? Siri, what time is it?
It's 9:47 a.m. Good morning.
See, I love my phone or my simulator talking to me. Okay, Siri, you did good. Okay, so you know the whole simulator is just like your iPhone, right? You got your home button. If you click that, it'll go to your home button, and you'll see all the icons. Well, no, I guess not. But I've seen the icons before. I don't know. My screen is too big. But so try that. I would go through the simulator, try these things, see what they do. You're not really gonna break it. You might as well just try it. Look, they got internal microphone, audio, speakers out, and so on. You could here's a display. Maybe I can change that. Whoosh! That was definitely not a good thing. Uh-oh. I don't know what that was. And oh, look, they got little gestures for the phone. See that? Look at that. Okay. So, I think just try it. They tell you to quit, of course, is like a normal Apple program where you do Command Q and it quits it. Now, sometimes it just runs in the background. You ever try that and then test it and says, hey, you already have one running already, right? Yeah, so it happens. Just hit OK. What else is there? There's also some software limitations with Simulator, for example. Oh, yeah, that's what I just told you. Let's move to the next page. And then on page 60, they talk about using personal devices. And like I said, I haven't been able to connect my phone yet to this device, but we'll try and make it work so that we can simulate on the phone. So that was on page 60. And then page 61. Yeah, they still talk about connecting your phone, which I haven't done yet, so I'm going to move on past that. And they tell you how to connect your phone. I'm going to move on past that. I'm going to move to page 62 where it says debugging an application. On page 62, they talk about debugging an application. So this is very simple way of debugging. Debugging is the process of identifying and removing problems that may arise in your app. Xcode provides tools to help you through this process. When you run an app as described above, either on a simulator or on a device, Xcode will connect the app to its debugger. This allows you to watch the execution of your code in real time, stop code executing using breakpoints, print information from your code to the console, and much more. So if I hit return, next page, you'll see they also talk about warning messages. Those warning messages not necessarily will break your app, but it's something that you probably can fix. You'll get most of those when you're trying to align things on the screen, like we did with last class or the last week when we were trying to build the one with all the photos and stuff. When you're trying to do the alignment, you get a lot of these explanation points there. a lot of ways you can fix it is just by clicking on the exclamation point, and it'll try and fix it for you. So that's a good thing. So again, these are called warnings. They have the exclamation point there. Warnings are a simple kind of issue to fix. They're generated whenever your code is built, but they don't prevent your program from successfully compiling and running. Some of the conditions that can throw a warning includes writing code that never gets executed, creating a variable that never changes, using code that's out of date, also known as deprecated code. And the book here, and here you're going to run into this later on, some of the pages in this book will tell you to use deprecated code, and then the software will tell you, hey, that's deprecated, but the book was using it. And I've already told Apple about that. You know, you got bad code in your book. You know, they say they're working on it, making an update. But all I'm trying to say, you will run into that, especially when we get to doing the apple tree thing, the one that, or the Hangman project. There's some issues with older code in that. We'll see how we can get around it. So let's try what it says. Again, most of the code that they talk about in this chapter is going to be in the ViewController. So I'm on page 63. So I'm going to click on ViewController. And they say right after the ViewController Swift, the project, Super ViewDidLoad, which is right here. So here, we can remove this right now. Remove this. You don't need that green thing. That's just the thing there. So they tell you to put a constant that says let x equal 4, which seems like it would be there, right? Hey, that looks good. Then they say run your app, and you're going to get this error message. Why? The value x was never used. Okay, so you made a constant, right? X equals 4. You know what a constant is already. But you never used it. And they're saying, hey, you've got something that you're using, but you know, it's not even being used. So that's it. But again, it didn't stop your simulator from running. You see the simulator. It just gave you a warning. Okay, it's not like the red. The red will stop it. Okay, so just be aware that we can quit the simulator again. You can see that. Let's remove this for now. It was just there. And of course, that's what they talk about there. Xcode tries to give you a message that tells you, hey, what could be wrong. And in fact, Xcode does a really good job of fixing errors. When you get to a little bit more complex things, you're going to be typing in things. There will be errors that it gives you, and a lot of times if you just click on it, it'll actually replace it with the right code. You'll be amazed. You'll be like, oh my God, it replaced it with the right code. It's smarter than me. It does it for you. You'll find that, I'm sure. Okay, I'm going to jump to page 64. The compiler tells you that it created X, but since it's not used in meaningful, so they're just telling you at the top of the page. The next one is an error, page 64. That is the big red no, evil, and it won't compile. So an error or an exception is indicated of a more serious issue. For example, invalid code such as a typo, improper declaring of a variable, or improperly calling a function. Unlike a warning, an error prevents the code from ever being executed. Simulator won't even launch if your code has an error, just like I just said. Here's a look at different errors and making the view control. So let's add some of these. Remove the opening and closing parentheses of the super ViewDidLoad, leaving super ViewDidLoad beneath the line, and the bug of the code, right navigator controller be bugging you. Build the app and see the two errors. So they're asking you to make an error. So they're asking you to remove what? These guys? No, not that. What are they asking us to remove? This one? So delete those. The ones right here, the two brackets at the end of super ViewDidLoad, and it'll give you the error message. That's what they're trying to tell you. So beneath the line of code, right navigation controller title debugging. If you build the app, you'll see two red symbols, so they tell you to hit return there. and then they will tell you navigation controller dot title debugging. Debugging? So then again we have two errors. After you build your app, you see two red symbols, like we do. We have two red symbols. One of the errors has a dot in the center, which is, of course, this one right here that they're talking about. Click this error and Xcode displays a suggestion to fix the code. Click the Fix button to have the Xcode implement the suggestion. In the instance, Xcode provides a valid fix. However, the compiler cannot be relied upon to properly fix all errors. Just like I said, they will try and fix it. So again, this one says there's an error here. If we hit the little button, it says value of the optional type UI navigation controllers not unwrapped. Did you mean to use an exclamation point or a question? Insert the question. And if we hit fix, it fixes it. It puts a question in there. So it will fix errors for you, is what the whole point of this is. Or an exclamation point. Did you notice some, like the code we were using last time, used an exclamation point sometimes, and sometimes it has a question. It's basically saying that this thing that you're trying to do has no value, and you need to, tell it, hey, if you have no value, you're okay for now. Just keep going. If that's a word. We'll talk. We'll do a lot more code discussion next week. Probably next week I'll run through the code with you, and we'll be doing code together. We'll talk about the code. I'll give you hopefully some good knowledge of what the code's doing. Hopefully you have some nice foundation by now from doing the first kind of chapters or lessons in the book, so that when I start talking about the code next week, we can go into a little bit more detail and find out why do I use the question mark over the exclamation point and things like that. We'll talk about that. What is a null, and just terms like that. We'll talk together next week. Okay, so let's see what else they say. In the other error is an exclamation point. Xcode doesn't offer a fix for this type of error. It does provide a message that can help you identify the issue. Compilers expect to see an open and closing parentheses at the proper syntax for calling a function. Adds both characters at the end, and so they're saying add. Doesn't tell you exactly, but it tells you something. If you put the round brackets back in there, boom, it fixes it. Okay, let's type in the bug, and we'll learn how to debug our program. So look at where it is right there, where it says variable. I'm going to remove this one. I'm going to get rid of that. We don't need that anymore. Okay, but what we are going to do is the code that's written on page 65 right there, I'm going to type it in right here so we can learn how to debug our app. So basically it's a variable called names, and it's equal to, and they're using the round bracket, which is basically a list of names here, and Tammy or whoever you want to put in there. And then we're going to put in Cole, like that. And then put in names dot remove first. So they're basically taking a word out of the list right there. I made a variable with two names in it. So if you want to remove the first item in the list that we got there, it's called remove first. And then we can put round bracket, and then you're going to do this 3 times. So you can copy and paste this 3 times. So we're going to get an error, and the error is going to be basically you're making a variable called names, and it has 2 names in there because it's in a round bracket. And so it's the first because there's a comma between it, right? So there's 1, and then comma, and then 2. So it says remove first. It's going to work. It's going to pull Tammy out. Remove first. It's going to remove Cole. Once this one's gone, this moves to first. And then this one, there's nothing in there, so it's going to give you an error message. But they want you to see how to step through this and work through it. How you do that is by making it a breakpoint. What is a breakpoint? Well, it's a way of stopping your code. The code runs from top to bottom. So as the code is going through, you can put what's called a breakpoint, which will stop it. Then you can step through one line at a time so that it doesn't keep running. And so you can slowly go through the code to see where the error is. Okay, and so that's what they're teaching you right here. Let's see, build your app since the syntax is valid. You will receive the build succeeded message, and after 3 months, the program will crash in the fall. So they tell you to run it, and it's going to crash. Well, let's just run it, and we'll see. Here, you don't have to do it. I'll just do it for you. How about that? We'll run it. Uh-oh. It's going. It's going. It's going. Oh, then it exploded. Some of you have seen this last class, I'm sure, in your project. It's basically saying, again, the same concept I just told you. That it got to the third one, and since there's no more in there, it gave you an error message. Okay, so hopefully you understand. You made a variable with these two items in that variable, and then this first line removes that one, second line removes this one over there, and since there's nothing in there, it gave you an error message. Okay, so how do I deal with that? The other thing you'll notice is down here, it starts telling you. So look down here. Okay, it's telling you there's something wrong. And the first thing is, and if you read this line right now, it's telling you what we just discovered. That names has no value in it, 0 values. So how can I remove the first if there's nothing in there? That's kind of what it's telling you. So try and read these things in what your language knows. And try and interpret that to your brain. And so when you're starting to program, you need to start thinking like that. Okay, let's try a breakpoint now. I'm on page 66 in the book. Page 66. Now, my number's a little bit different than the numbers in the book. So I know they have page 14, or line 14. Doesn't really matter. We're going to make a breakpoint at the beginning of the variable where the variable starts, which is right here. To make a breakpoint, you just click. See where I clicked on the 15 right there? Mine's 15. Yours might be a different line, but where the variable is, you click here and it makes this little blue arrow. Do you see that? Okay, that's called a breakpoint. Okay. Let me quit my simulator. I think it's still running with the error. There we go. And I don't know how to get rid of this. This has already gave me an error. I don't know how to get rid of it. Yep.
The error messages.
Did what? You're not getting this error message here when you simulate? Did you simulate it? The breakpoint here. So again, you could put these, see these little blue things, they're kind of breakpoints that will stop the code from running at that point. If you don't want them anymore, you can right click on them and say remove or disable or delete. So if you don't want it anymore, again, right clicking will say either disable, which it'll bypass that breakpoint, or delete will remove that breakpoint. So you can, again, it's by right clicking on them and delete breakpoint. So that's how you can set them and remove them.
Excuse me. Is there any option we can watch the value of names in this window when we have breakpoint?
Yeah, you can see the value that's being generated. Yes, it'll show you. Yes. Okay, so where are we at? We saw the okay, let's try building our app again. So if we hit the play button again. Okay, it gets to the thing, and of course it stops. Notice you get a green thing right here. See how it stops there? So you get a green thing and says, hey, I stopped my app running at the breakpoint like you told me, right? You have a breakpoint. So then to go from line to line, they tell you to click on this option that's right here, which is step over, which means it'll go to the next line. So again, it's like this little icon at the very down here. This is all like the debugging features down here. To step over is this one that has a little arrow that's going over, as you can see right here. So if you click on that, it'll go over to the next line, and it says fine, perfect. Down here it says names equals 2 values, right? Because there's 2 values in there. Oh, I don't know if you can twirl that down. And there you go. It's telling you Tammy's in 0. Remember, if you're doing a list, I don't know if they talked about that inside of the code yet, but of course, if you're doing a list of things, it always starts with 0 and then goes to 1, right? So this is 1. And that's this first item here. You think first means 1, but first item is actually a 0, always value-wise when you're doing a list like this. And so far so good. It said, hey, we can deal with that. And then you go to the next line, and then boom, it removed Tammy and put Cole in there, right? That's what it did. Again, Cole's there in the 0 position. See down here in the simulator down here. So then you go one more line, and boom, it's going to give you an error message. Oh, no, it went. Oh, we haven't done this yet. We try and go over this, it'll give you the error message. And that's when it says there's no value to remove from this. Again, that's all on page 66 and 67. So again, they talk about that on 67. And then they talk about why it's crucial to debugging. So that was just a simple example from the book on how to step through your code, how to make a breakpoint, and you know, where you can read down here what is happening in your code. Okay, let's try the next example. Okay, let me pause this for my recording. Thank you. Okay, so again, this is called first time debugging. In this case, this one has a bunch of errors in it. If you go and look at the ViewController, you'll see the errors in there. And so we're going to go and try and fix the errors that are in here. To do that, they tell you to run it, right? And of course, it's going to go through and give you some errors. So again, they say common mistakes would be missing an extra parentheses or braces, whether opening or closing, referencing a proper or improper or property, but with incorrect spelling. Remember, the compiler is very literal. It expects you to reference a function or property exactly by the name you gave it. Sometimes a single mistake can cause the compiler to flag multiple errors. Fix one mistake and you might eliminate all the errors and symbols. And of course, I don't have any. I thought did I simulate this? Oh, it won't even simulate. It just says it won't even try it. So you'll see the errors up here in the ViewController. So then it comes over here and says you have some errors in there. Expect parameters, name followed by looks like a quote. Were you able to remove all the red error symbols from the project? If so, try and run the app again. So let's see if we can remove the error. Again, it's telling us what we need. So what do you think is wrong? Does anybody see the problem? Right here? You need the parentheses there like that, right? You need this parentheses right there. It's missing that. Uh-oh, we come down here and it found another error. It's called some method. Some method. So most likely, I think you probably need to spell this properly with a D. Some method. Did you see the D there? Okay. Uh-oh. Now I got some more errors. Okay, so it's going to come up. Okay, again, the first one is probably telling you that, again, like the first example where we did let x equal 4. Do you remember that? Well, it didn't know what to do with that, okay, because you never used it. This is probably the same kind of error here. Variable sample was never mutated, consider changing it to a let. So it's saying you're using a variable that is doesn't change. So why are you using a variable that doesn't change? You should make it a constant. That's sort of what I think they're telling you, right? This tells it, hey, this is something you want to change. So it's not gonna, I don't think, break your code, right? I think it's a yellow one. It's a yellow one, so it's not gonna stop it from running, but they're giving you a message. And I think this was our discussion from last class. Why are we using so many? Susan was like, why do we use so many constants? Well, they're trying to get you to make your code, I guess, cleaner, if that's a term. And so we can put a let in there if we need to, if it's not changing, and we'll get rid of that error message there. And then this one says will never be executed. You got to if false. Print will this line of code ever be reached? It's always false. So yeah, I guess it's just giving an error message that you have a bunch of code in there that's never ever going to be used probably. So you can probably just remove it. I don't know. So that was that. That was on page 69. And it says you can run your app. And then of course they have the questions at the end there. Congratulations, you have now a project free of compiler errors. So you want to go through the questions, of course. The first one is, what do you use to switch to running code on a physical device instead of using simulator? That was the scheme. B. Everybody see that? I think it's B, right? Check answer. Woohoo! Okay. That was at the beginning of this chapter where I went through this thing up here, right? And then there's a way to put it on your device. See, right now it says no device connected. Do you see that? So this is where you would connect your device if you had a phone that could connect to your computer. That's what that's called. Next question is, which of the following are requirements for running code on an actual device? A developer account, right? Registering email as a developer account. B. You don't have to pay. You just need to register as developer, I believe. I don't think you have to pay the $99. Oh, but you do. It has more answers. Apple ID too, right? You need that. Adding the developer account, you need that. And I don't think you need to pay the membership, do you? I think it said it was free for, yeah. Just to do that. If you want to put it in the App Store, though, you have to pay the $99. Okay, but if you just want to simulate it, okay, and have an Apple developer, okay? So you probably should sign up with that today if you haven't. After code execution has paused at a breakpoint, which button will resume execution? A, continue. B, step over. C, step into. D, step out. Well, it sounds like a dance move there. B, step over, right? Oh, A, continue? Yeah. Oh, did I get that wrong? Wasn't I using step over? Okay, so let's jump to the next one briefly. I'm going to leave in a little bit. My wife is sick. I got to go home and take care of her. Yes. Yeah, I don't know. She didn't even want me to come. She wanted me to stay home with her. I told her I had to come for you, though. Yes. Okay, so let's look at the documentation. Again, this is if you want to look up code and, kind of like in the last one. And in fact, you should go back to the last lesson, the guided light, and try. Remember the area where I jumped over the debugging? Because I told you we were going to go and do that today. So that's why I kind of skipped it. Now you can go back to that guided light and do the debugging part. You should do that. Okay. Let's just talk about the documentation real quick here. How to use the documentation and how to find sample code and framework guides. Again, there's actually also, I've looked up things online, especially when I was running into problems that I couldn't deal with in the book. I would go, on GitHub, there's some nice examples there. And on swift.org, there's some good examples there. There's a Q&A, I believe, on swift.org area as well. I believe there was one there. So keep that in mind. You can find things. Okay, so the documentation browser. In the previous lesson, you added line of code inside the ViewDidLoad function. Do you have any idea that the function does or what the function is called in your program? Xcode provides a fast answer using the quick help feature. Option click the ViewDidLoad method name, and Xcode displays a pop-up view. So this one is kind of this one still's giving me error message. How did I get rid of this? Let's just delete that. There we go. So they're telling you to right click on this, and you can come up with what are they? Open Assistant Editor, Reveal Project Navigator, reveal some. What is it saying? No, mine's not. Is it ViewDidLoad? Yeah. I don't have a quick view, do I? Maybe I have an older version. Jump to definition. Oh, highlight it first, huh?
You know, make it the target selection first, like you double click ViewDidLoad. Just the now do the thingy. Where did it go? I had it a minute ago where the cursor then turns to a question mark when you use Alt Option on my keyboard.
Oh, there we go. Option. There we go. Oh, very nice. Thank you. So that was hold down the Option key on the keyboard.
It seems like I have to first highlight the word before you do it.
So again, function ViewDidLoad after the controller's view is loaded into memory. This method is called after the view controller has loaded its view hierarchy in memory. This method is called regardless of whether the view hierarchy is loaded from the nib file or created programmably in the ViewLoad method. You usually override this method to perform additional initializations on views that were loaded from the nib files. And again, it shows you some options for that. So with the quick help, the popover click method reference to access Xcode documentation, which include, there is a quick help, and under the help here, and so let's see. There is a whole documentation here. You can also access the window from Xcode help menu by using the shortcut command Shift-0. Let's try that. What was it? Command-Shift-0. There we go. That brings it up. Then you can search for what you're looking for, and of course they were looking for ViewDidLoad. And of course it looks a little different now probably from what you see there. And so you can search, just like last class when we were looking, we were trying to change text as well. What was that called in the last lesson where we were changing the text from on to off, and we had to change what title? What was that called? Title? What I'm trying to say is you can look up any of those and it'll give you that information in the help menu here. Again, if you don't see the help menu, there's a couple places. I did the command Shift-0 to bring it up, or you can go over here to the help and say Xcode help. Oh, that's a little bit different, isn't it? How did I get that?
Developer.
Oh, developer documentation. That's it. The first one. In addition to that, you can actually look for things as you go over here. You got the whole window here. So if you're trying to do things, you might need to bring those up, especially when you're doing the map. I was looking up things for map. Where's the map? There was code for a map. Maybe search. There it is, map kit. Okay, so down here it'll give you some information on how to use that code. Again, like I was telling you before, you're going to be using latitude and longitude coordinates for the map. So when we get to using the map, this is the code you're going to be writing in, and then you're going to be entering the latitude and longitude positions to bring the map. And so, like I said, as you're looking through things, when I was doing the map, I had to look this up. And when I discovered the longitude and longitude, I was like, ooh, this is so cool, because hey, using the Earth's surface in your code was cool to me. What else is there? So that was on page whatever 74, and of course they talk about searching. We just did some of that searching. That was on page 74, 75. If you click on it, it'll actually give you more information, I believe, as well, and tell you how to use it a little bit more. Okay, so here again, we're going to be initializing coordinates and region and so on. So they give you a way, and you can actually copy and paste from here. I swear I did that from here. So again, they have a way of using it, how to use the code. You need to initialize it, enter your coordinates, and then create the map, and then put it in a rectangle. There's a box for your map. So your map doesn't have to take up the whole screen. Your map can be a little area, so you can make a box, rectangle for your map. So they're giving you all that information. You can pretty much build your map from all the stuff you see right there. You probably could do that right now, I bet. If you just go through and put in these things, you could do that. What else do they have? Sample code guide. They have a developer's website they talk about on page 77. And then they have some examples that you can use. And then you can jump right now to lesson 8.1 or 1.8. So any questions right now? Okay, I'm going to stop this right now.